Hey everybody, Larry here at Cameo Home Inspection Services and Cameo Real Estate School. As an inspector, I think that the most critical thing that we need to identify and educate our clients about are health and safety issues. Obviously there's a lot of other things that we do, but anything health and safety always rises to the top. And among health and safety issues, we commonly see problems with this little guy here, which is a temperature and pressure relief valve from a water heater. I know you've all seen them, but I want to talk with you about this a little bit because this is really important, and there are oftentimes errors with this that we see during an inspection. Interestingly, every one of these, when they're installed, has a little yellow tag on it, and it says in perfectly clear language exactly how it's supposed to be installed. So unfortunately there's some folks that just don't read those directions. So I'm going to give you a quick overview. Number one, this is a sensor probe. This tells this valve when to open up. This valve is going to open up when it senses 210 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 pounds per square inch of pressure. That's a bunch. This sensor tip needs to be in the top 6 inches of the water column in the tank. It can be from the top, it can be from the side, but it needs to be in the top 6 inches. That's important because one of the things that happened with recent changes in the energy requirements for water heaters is that the water heater size changed. So a lot of times you're putting in a water heater that sits a little shorter than the previous one, and now you're trying to plumb this bad boy out, and the point where you need to plumb it to is up here. So what people do is sometimes they take a nipple and a coupler and they elevate this thing so that it will accommodate the old plumbing. Problem is, now you're sitting up here, and as you can see, that sensor tip is not in that upper column of water, which means it's not going to work. So that is a not altogether uncommon finding during inspection. Next is that this diameter of pipe, the inside diameter, needs to be maintained through the whole run. Remember, 150 psi, 210 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't want anything to restrict that. I want that to free flow all the way to the outside. So that diameter has to stay the same. A lot of times though, what you see is that that pipe diameter has been reduced for whatever reason. One of the ones that's fairly common is to take a flex line like this, which in some places is not even allowed, but a lot of times you're going to deal with a flex line that actually reduces the diameter. So it's something that inspector really needs to pay attention to. The other thing, now we're going to go back to when we had this other water heater installed, and now we have one that's shorter. So Mr. Homeowner says, well, what the heck, I'm going to just put this flex line in here and I'll just run it uphill and I'll connect it to the existing pressure relief line that was plumbed to the outside. Well, okay, that's well and good, except for look what's happening here. This line is running uphill. Now I want you to think about this. This is what we call a trapped pressure relief valve. If this valve ever leaks, which sometimes they do, then what's going to happen is that that water's trapped in here. And so now that water and all the minerals in it can form deposits on this valve, which means that if this valve ever does need to open up, it may not. This is a really, really common safety issue. It's a totally inappropriate installation, and it's a definite health and safety risk. So these are some of the things that we see not uncommonly. And again, I hate plumbing, sorry. Doesn't matter how many beers I have, still can't make it come out right. This is a critical part of the whole inspection of a water heater, and anything that's wrong with this, with the installation, absolutely needs to be documented. And I would also tell you, as homeowners, it's important to test this a couple times a year. You flip this up and water should come shooting out of it. You need to make sure that that's working right. As a home inspector, we're not going to do that. Specifically in standards of practice, it's outlined that's not something that you do. But again, that's your temperature pressure relief valve, and in general, again, it should never be downsized. It should never run uphill. There's also certain restrictions about how many elbows you can have on it, so on and so forth. But I just wanted to try to hit some of the highlights of the things that we see commonly. So hope that helps. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much.